About 7 years ago, my bank handed out these pocket dongles for secure log on to the accounts. There's a Vasco Digipass GO6, which after about 7 years, it did pretty well, but after about 7 years, it started throwing up a 5% low battery warning and then a 3% a few weeks later, which I seem to think that it was starting to die. Now, the banks no longer replace these tokens. They still accept the numbers, but you can't buy a new one with a new battery. They insist you use the phone apps, which I don't particularly like that much. So I thought I'd replace the battery. Now, I realised that if you take the battery out to replace it, it's going to lose its memory, which will mean it will lose the synchronisation with the bank servers, so that when you press the button, the numbers will no longer be correct. So I reasoned that you'd have to bypass the battery before you take it out and put another battery in parallel. Now, I did have a video showing all this, but I've lost it somewhere, so I'll just describe what I did. And anyone with a little bit of nous can do the same. So I just used a Dremel tool to slice around the edge to expose the battery and the contacts. It's underneath the section where the push button is. And then slice across here. Now, there is actually a shield around here, a little plastic shield, so the Dremel shouldn't go through if you're careful. So I pulled all that plastic off, and there you go, there's the battery. Now, thanks to the Crocs options, c18.it stroke Digipass GO6 HTML, Digipass Go-6.html. They've got some pictures of the interiors of these, which helped me a lot. Now, of course, on the back of the battery is our positive terminal. So you just have to solder a wire onto here, flick up the tab. Now, this little contact just here is the negative. So we solder the negative portion of the bypass battery onto here. And there's the bypass battery I used. It's just another C2032 with the wires taped to the two sides. And those wires hooked up in parallel. That way the good 2032 is supplying the backup supply. Then we can lift the tab up. What I did was get a very thin piece of plastic and slide it in on top of these contacts here, just so that I wouldn't accidentally, I wasn't sure if one of these other contacts had power supply on it, so I just slid a bit of plastic, thin plastic under the battery, just so that I couldn't accidentally touch any contacts. And then I got a plastic prong and pushed it out, not a metal one, a plastic one. You could, if you want, cut more of this cover away, give easier access to the battery, but I didn't think I needed it. So then you just slide that battery out, slide the new 2032 back in, push the tab back down, and sure enough, it worked fine. The numbers, oh, then of course take your bypass battery off, and then a bit of tape over the top to cover it all up, make it a bit prettier. And there you go, battery's good for another 7 years. Now, as it happened, well, I tried it, and sure enough, it retained its synchronisation, and it still worked perfectly. And then about a week later, the bank changed its mind and cut off contact with the synchronisation service. So it was all to nothing, but your bank may not be as inconsiderate as mine. There you go, that seems to work. Thank you.